Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Mini Age of Cullen. And we are going to be doing some minis. I'm going to be unboxing some minis, or I'm going to be painting some minis. Hi guys, this is Cobra Tom, and welcome to the Mini Age of Cullen, where in this video we will be going over the books that I've gotten, or magazines, I suppose. We've got Games Workshop presents a special issue of White Dwarf, the world of Game Workshop hobby games, and this is produced by Citadel Miniatures. And here is some great artwork. I hope you can see that. I think those are Chaos Space Marines. Yeah, it looks like Khorne Space Marines. Here's just that. You got the heavy metal, you got Space Hulks. Warhammer Fantasy, the story. Future developments, like where you can go and buy these things. Here's a picture of one of the stores. Here's some of the stuff that you can get from Citadel. Here's some of the like skeleton army. Here's for Warhammer regiments. These are wood elves. Like terrain and stuff. This was their fantasy battle line, the Warhammer line that I'm starting to collect. Here's like the Eldar and stuff, orcs, Blood Angels, land speeder, Space Marine captain, Eldar, stuff like that. This is really cool. Oh, a section for Blood Angels. How to decide the fate. This is kind of how you play the game. Some more of the miniatures you can get. Here's Space Marine, Eldar Army, Space Marine Fortress, Eldar Titan, Advanced Hero Quest, Citadel Miniatures you can buy. This is more for their fantasy line. But here's a Terminator, Orc, Eldar Tank, Ultramarines. I think this is Ultramarines Devastator Squad. So that's very cool. Orcs, Dark Angel, Terminator, Space Wolf Terminator, Orc stuff, some more Blood Angels, tanks, whirlwinds, and then kind of a little bit about the demon things that they had game day for, and Space Marine captains, stuff like that. So this is really cool. Oh, and then you can order miniatures and stuff, and you can order by MasterCard and all that. And then on the back here, I think, what does this say? Eldar fighting Blood Angels. So, pretty cool. Next I will do the Dark Millennium. This is going to be a bit of a longer one, but I'll try to kind of keep it within 20 minutes or so. Here we're going to do the Dark Millennium one. I'm going to just set this aside, kind of I'm hoping that the brown is giving it a bit of a nicer contrast than the plain white. I've noticed that the plain white kind of, well, my white isn't really very white anymore either. But yeah. Here's some pictures for the miniatures. Here's the Ultramarine Assault Marine. Contents. So it like Psychers, how to play the cards, how to play the templates, determining the powers, the psychers, and the psychic phase in the when you're playing. Here's the psychic phase rules and the disciplines for the psyker. How to use like the warp and stuff, the warp cards, destroy cards, psychic powers, and armor save throws. This is pretty much how you play the game. Split up squads. Here is the psychic what you got to roll. Hopefully you can see that. I will. There you go. You can pause that and read that if you want. The powers, the machine curses, how to teleport, Tyrannid psychic powers, Zeech, Nurgle, these are all the bad guys. Purge Psyker, he's a bad guy. How you can kind of use the Warp Core Death Wave. Dirk Crunch is I think an orc one. The Beam of Slanesh, Zeech. I think I'm saying that right. I could be completely wrong. I'm saying Slanesh. Maybe it's Slanesh. 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 Zeech. Sneech. Sneech. Nurgle. These are all like the evil space gods. I think there's one more. Because there's 4 of them, and I can't think of what the other one is. Nurgle, Sneech, Slanesh. I think there's a 4th one, but I can't remember. The power of the Wog, which is like a orc power. Weird boy phase. Grey Knights. I think Grey Knights were new at this point. At this point, I think Grey Knights were new. I believe... Yeah, I think this is like a short story of the Grey Knights. I believe I would have to look. Captain Sterna, Grey Knights. Yeah, that's kind of like their whole like little rundown of their mythology here. Daemons, which are like demons in Greek mythology. They're sort of like monsters from the abyss or Tartarus or something like that. So you kind of get like monsters and demons and stuff. Khorne's the other one. Khorne is the other one I could not think of. That all of a sudden just popped into my head. Keeper of Secrets is Slanesh. The Great Unclean One is Nurgle. And the Lord of Change is Zenich. And then the other daemons, like the monsters and demons and stuff, are Daemonite, Mastery Level, Plague Bearer, Horror Master. Here's the thing for strategy cards, weapons and support squadrons, vehicles, weapon values, Space Marine Dreadnought rules, victory points. It's how you deal out after the victory is won. Here's a wonderful picture of that old-timey Warhammer art. Awesome. This looks like another story about the Lehman Russ tanks and stuff. And then here's what you can buy. Here's like the purchasing page. You can buy weird boys and orc bosses. Eldar are elves. So kind of a long story, but the Eldar are the bad guy. Surprisingly, elves are the bad guys. Well, so are orcs, but the elves are kind of the reason there's the whole warp, and it's a whole thing. So, like tanks you can buy and stuff, and then kind of how to put the dreadnought together. And then here's a Blood Angels dreadnought. Space Goof Knob. Squat Champion. So, very cool. Very cool. Oh, and on the back here you've got hopefully you can see that. I'm hoping you can see that. Ultramarines and Blood Angels. Very nice. With the, I believe, with the ruined chapel in the back. That's pretty cool. Next, I'm going to do the Codex for 2nd edition for Codex Imperials. And here you've got a really cool picture. Here you've got more, here's more pictures of the ruined chapel. Devastator Squad for Ultramarines. Deathwing Terminators versus World Eaters. Oh, another real nice thing. Here's a hundreds of centuries of fighting. A little brief little story. Like the chapters and the Imperium, Space Marines, Imperial Guards, kind of how to build your army, the Inquisition, the Astartes, which are the Space Marines, the Telepathica, which are like the Psychers, the Ministorium, which is like librarians and stuff, assassins and orcs and excuse me, chaos, perils of the warp, tides of the warp. Another really awesome picture. I'll let you look at this and kind of do this. Hive worlds and stuff. It'll kind of explain to you that, like the actual galaxy of Warhammer, the Imperium, how it works. There's the Emperor and then High Lords and the Inquisition, all this stuff. I will let you guys get that, pause that, and read that if you want. The High Lords of Terra. Here are how you can set up your Space Marines, the origins, first founding. Here's a little about the chapters. Here's how the founding chapters kind of go, because it gives you like the Primarch and everything. Dark Angels. A brief story of the Space Marines, Special Marines, Primarch, which is pretty much like the Emperor is supposed to be the god of their universe, I guess, as you would say, a story universe. And the Primarchs are his sons, and they're like demigods. They're like Hercules. And then the Space Marines are kind of like demigods as well. They're built stronger and all this stuff, but they're not as powerful as the Primarch. But the Primarch isn't the father necessarily, but gives them like the bloodline and stuff. And then it gives like Tech Marines, Servitor, their numbers. You've got chaplains here, Apocryphy here, librarian, scouts. A little story of Raphael, I think this is. I believe it's a Blood Angel. Recruitments, regiments, something about that, stuff about the commissary, short little story about them. Ogrins, which are like half human hybrid things. Imperial Guardsmen, Rough Riders. I'm not sure what a Rough Rider is offhand. Halfling Snipers, Penal Troops, the Commissar, who's kind of like the leader of the army, I guess, kind of like a general. The Conclave, the Inquisition. It kind of tells you about all that. Ord Mentalis is a character. An Inquisitor. I think there's Kotiax, who's an Inquisitor. I'm sure there's many others. There's the Exterminus, the Grey Knights, Inquisitor here. Judges, Arbiters, the Telepaths. Kind of gives them kind of a how you play them. The Adeptus Sororitas are fighting women, and they believe, I think they're like the ones that really believe he's God, and they're like nuns, but they like shoot. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have any, and I haven't gotten into their history, but as what I can tell, I think that's what it is, basically. It's they're fighting nuns. The cult, the preachers, the confessors, the Titan Legions, which I think is like a big robot. Mars, I think this is a little story about how, like, how Mars became like independent on its own and with the Emperor and all that. The Tech Priests, Tech Priest Engineers, Servitors, Electro Priests, Assassins, the Administrators, basically the High Lords and stuff, and they kind of tell you what to do. Here's stuff about orcs and their clans. Here are some banners for their tribes. There's Bad Moons, Goths, Blood Axes, Death Skulls, Snake Bites, Evil Sons. Very cool. Orcs are the bad guys, Snotlings, Weird Boys, Pain Boys. The Eldar are elves from I don't know what planet. I'm sure this is good. Like, if you read all this, you'd get the backstory. They basically created the warp, their avatar, warriors, overseers. Another probably quick history of what happened. They're basically the bad guys. Exarchs, Harlequins, they're tanks. Their home world, guilds and stuff. Then you've got Chaos, which are like supporting daemons and daemon cavalry. They're like space marines, but they've got all the evil chaos inflictions. Bloodthirster is a big daemon, which is the daemon of Khorne, which is the one I couldn't remember before. And Bloodletters are like, he's like a great big one, and the other ones are like little minions. The Hounds, the Fiends of Slaanesh, Keeper of Secrets of Slaanesh, the Unclean One of Nurgle. Nurgle is like rotting corpses and stuff. And Slaanesh is, I think like Khorne is like wrath and blood and all that kind of stuff. Like he's the hate and vengeance and violence and all that stuff. And I think like Slaanesh is all the like what's a word to be a little family friendly here? They're more of like succubuses, vampires, um, more female adult um, monsters and stuff. Nurgle is like rot and decay and plagues and stuff. And Zeech, like the Lord of Change and Flames and Horrors and stuff, I think he's more like beasts and hounds and champion, you know, like maybe it'll say the sensual. Yep. Slanesh is the sensual. Nurgle is like corruption of the bodies and stuff with bloating and rot and stuff. And Khorne is like savage fighters, and Zeech is changes the way matter and arcane magic and changing things and using the warp to do bad stuff. Tyranids are like bug insect. It's more complicated than that, but that's basically what they are. They're multi-armed, like creatures that steal your dream, their DNA, and they like try to make hybrids and stuff. And they're another group of bad guys. Basically, Warhammer is just filled with nothing but bad guys. I don't really know if the Space Marines are good guys really either. They don't. I don't think they're really all that the good guys, but there's a lot of bad guys. Please like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications so you never miss an awesome video. Well, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.